My name is Sarah Parker, 34 years old, and I'm the CEO of a large software company in New York. I've spent my entire life trying to gain my parents' approval, to prove that I am not the failure they always thought I was. But one call that night changed everything. When I heard my dad's voice on the phone, I never imagined he would say something like this. "You're a failure, Sarah. You'll never be worthy of this family." I've lived in the shadow of emotional neglect and lack of recognition for so many years, but those words hit me like a slap in the face. Have you ever felt like you've spent your whole life trying but never receiving recognition from your family? Comment below this video, share your story, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to join me in this intense journey. After hearing those words from my dad, I couldn't sleep. I sat there in the stillness of the late night, the faint glow of my laptop screen reflecting on my face, filled with emotion. I couldn't understand why my dad treated me this way. Why had he always seen me as a burden throughout my life? Had the years I spent helping the family, assisting them through hardships, meant nothing to him? The next morning, I decided to call my mom, Linda. She was always the one who listened to me, the only person in the family I felt I could confide in. But today, I needed to ask her about the things I had just heard, to better understand the past I had missed. I couldn't fathom why my dad had humiliated me like that. "Hi, Mom, I need to talk to you for a moment," I started as soon as she picked up. "Of course, Sarah, what's going on?" My mom's voice was gentle, unaware that I was about to hear something that would change everything. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. "Mom, I want to know about Dad and me, about what he really thinks of me. Has Dad ever said anything about me?" There was a long pause before she spoke. "I don't know how to say this, my dear. Your father, he's always had a very harsh view of you. He's never thought you were good enough." Her words hit me like a punch to the chest. I knew my dad could be difficult, but I never imagined he thought of me as a burden. "Mom, Dad said I'm a failure. He's always thought I would never succeed. Why does he think that about me? Can you explain?" I asked, my voice breaking. At that moment, my mom sighed, as if she had been waiting for this day to come. "Sarah, do you know since you were little, your dad has always compared you to Jake? He always thought you weren't good enough, not as smart as him. Everything you did, it was never enough. He wanted you to fail, so Jake could inherit the family business." I couldn't believe what my mom was telling me. I thought I had done everything to make him proud, but it turned out that all my efforts meant nothing to him. I couldn't imagine that my dad thought this way about me. "Your dad, he always saw you as a burden. He didn't want you to succeed. Only Jake was the one he expected to take over the family business," my mom continued, her voice gentle but filled with sadness. I felt like my heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. The years of hard work, the countless sacrifices I made to prove I could succeed just like anyone else, all of it meant nothing. It was all just a shadow to someone my dad could never truly see. "Mom, but I've achieved so much that Dad never could. I built a successful company. I helped the family through financial crisis. I did everything. Why couldn't he see that?" I asked, the tension rising in my chest. My mom sighed again. "Honey, your dad is very proud of Jake. He always thought the family business would only grow if it was in Jake's hands. But you were different. He never valued what you did, even though you tried so hard. Your dad only saw Jake as the one who could carry the family." The feeling of suffocation grew heavier. How could I accept this? I had always thought of family as a place where I would find comfort, love, and recognition, but now I realized my family, especially my dad, had never loved me in the way I hoped. "Then why didn't you ever tell Dad any of this?" I asked, the hurt evident in my voice. "I tried, Sarah, but your dad never cared. He always thought you weren't capable. It hurt me so much to watch you struggle alone. But I couldn't do anything. He is who he is," my mom said, her voice full of sorrow. At that moment, I no longer felt the pain I once did. Everything now felt like a cold, rational realization about what I had missed. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of people who never saw me for who I really was. I had spent my entire life trying to please my parents, but now I realized they never wanted me to succeed in my own way. Mom, I can't live like this anymore. I can't keep being the daughter Dad never respected. I won't let him dictate my life anymore, I decided, my voice firmer than it had ever been. My mom was silent for a moment before saying, "Do what you must, Sarah, but don't forget, your dad will always be your dad. I just want you to be happy." Her words were a gentle reminder, but I knew I had enough strength to walk my own path, even if it meant leaving behind the people I had once loved. After hearing my mom say those words, I felt like my heart was torn apart. Everything inside me felt like it was breaking, but at the same time, a fire inside me began to ignite. It was time to stop being buried under the words of my parents, to stop living forever in their shadow. I had spent my whole life giving everything for this family, yet they only saw me as a burden, a failure who could never succeed. If I didn't stop now, I would be trapped in the vicious cycle of disappointment and despair. I remembered everything I had done for the family over the years. I worked tirelessly, gave my all to the company, thinking it would be where my family could be proud of me. I paid off debts for my parents, helped them through financial struggles. I was the only one in this family willing to work relentlessly to keep them a roof over their heads. I didn't work just for the company, but for the family, for my parents. Meanwhile, Jake, my younger brother, was always treated like the golden child, the one who never had to worry about finances. But I didn't get a single word of praise, not even a little recognition, even though I did everything. Every time I achieved something, my dad either ignored it or found a way to devalue it. The successes I had earned were never enough for him to feel proud of me. As for Jake, despite doing nothing special, he was always seen as the one to inherit the family business. That feeling lingered within me like a wound that never healed. But today, after talking to my mom, I realized something clearly. I couldn't continue living like this. I couldn't let my dad or anyone in this family continue controlling my life. I had given enough. It was time for me to stand up and do something for myself. I looked into the mirror in my bedroom, wondering if I had the strength to change. The answer was yes. I wouldn't let my dad's words, those ridiculous comparisons, continue to hurt me. I was tired. I wouldn't let my parents control my life anymore. I wouldn't let people who never truly saw me continue to determine my future. With a renewed determination, I began to plan. The family business my dad always said was Jake's was actually being quietly supported and maintained by me. I had bought up most of the company's shares over the years without them knowing. I had invested so much money and effort into it. I never asked for thanks, but I had the right. I had the right to own that company, to decide its future. And more than anything, I had the right to decide who would lead this company, who would actually have the ability to take it further. I opened my laptop, retrieved the important documents about the company. Everything was ready. I had prepared all the contracts, all the evidence, everything I needed to take legal control of the company. I hadn't said anything to my parents, but I knew they wouldn't be able to escape the truth now. My entire family would have to face the truth they had ignored for all these years. What drives me even more is that I have witnessed too much selfishness and lack of recognition in my family. My father always lived in self-satisfaction, always considering himself the only one with the right to make decisions. But I will not let him continue doing that. If my father thinks I'm a failure, I will show him that he is wrong, that I have succeeded, and I don't need his approval to know my worth. I started drafting a letter. It wasn't a letter to explain, but one to inform. I would send it to my parents and Jake. This would be the message I wanted to send them. I have stood up for myself, and I don't need to live under anyone's control, not even my father's. I would no longer be part of the game they have created all these years. I would take control of my life, and I would make them understand that I am not a failure, but the one who decides her own fate. Dear Mom, Dad, and Jake, I wrote, my hands trembling but determined. After years of dedication to this family, I have realized it is time for me to no longer tolerate disrespect and belittling words. The company you thought would only belong to Jake actually belongs to me. I have quietly managed and maintained it all these years, while you thought I was incapable. Now it is time for me to demand the rights and recognition I deserve. Be prepared to face the truth." I paused, looking at the letter I had written, a strong feeling swelling inside me. This was the moment for me to step out of their shadow. I didn't have to continue enduring. I didn't need to prove myself to anyone anymore. I had done enough. Finally, I hit the send button. The letter was on its way to them. As for me, I was ready to face everything. After sending the letter, I felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off my shoulders, but at the same time, I knew this was only the beginning. It was time to truly make my parents realize that I wasn't a failure. And I wouldn't stop at publicly revealing the truth about the family business. I needed them to understand that I was the one truly holding the power, and I wouldn't let them continue to overpower me. For years, I had quietly planned to become the owner of the software company my father always considered a family asset. No one in my family, especially my father, ever thought I could do this. They had always believed I wasn't capable. But I had proven that I could, and I had done it. All I needed was time and patience. By founding JSC Holdings, I had quietly bought up most of the family business's shares without anyone knowing. Only I and my financial advisor, Mark, knew about this plan. All transactions were carried out through my subsidiary, and neither my father, my mother, nor Jake had any clue. Every time they thought they were in control of the company, I silently took control from them without their knowledge. The software company my father was so proud of had been shifted in a direction they could no longer control. Every contract, every major deal I had signed on behalf of the family. The family business, which my father always believed could only be inherited by Jake, was now fully under my control, and I wouldn't stop until my father realized he was wrong to see me as a failure. I remember the last time my father asked me about the company. He scoffed when I talked about ideas and plans for its growth. "You think you can run this company?" he said, his voice full of contempt. "This company can only grow when Jake is in charge. You don't have the ability." Those words no longer hurt like they used to. I had grown accustomed to his disdain, but now I didn't need to tolerate it any longer. It was time to teach him a lesson. That day, when I learned that my father would publicly declare Jake as the successor, I was already prepared. I worked through the night to finalize all the documents, contracts, and paperwork related to the ownership of the company. I opened my laptop, double-checking all the signed contracts, every small detail in the documents. Everything was ready, and just a little more, I would step out and show my father who I really was. I sent a notification to my parents and Jake that I wanted to meet them. This would not be a simple meeting. I would not just sit there quietly and listen to them speak. I would stand up, I would speak out, and I would show them that I am not the useless daughter, not the outcast of this family. I had the right, and I would use that right. That afternoon, I met them at my parents' house. The room was filled with tension. My father sat at the head of the table, his face unchanged. My mother looked at me with a worried glance, while Jake, my younger brother, remained indifferent as always. "What do you want to discuss with us?" my father asked, his tone indifferent. I didn't answer immediately. I slowly opened my laptop and connected to the projector. Each slide on the screen displayed data, contracts, and documents proving my ownership of the family business. "Dad, Mom, and Jake," I said, my voice calm but firm. "You think I'm not capable of running this company, but the truth is, I have quietly owned it for all these years. All major transactions, all important decisions have been made by me. This company has been in my hands for a long time." The three of them went silent. My father looked at me with astonishment. I could see him trying to find a reason to deny what I had just said, but everything was clear. "You? What do you mean by that?" my father asked, his voice trailing off. "I bought the family business. I've done everything you needed without anyone realizing," I continued, my voice unwavering. "I've kept the company afloat for all these years, and now it's time for me to decide its future. Jake will not be the successor. I am the one truly deserving." I looked at my parents and Jake, watching their expressions gradually change. They could no longer deny the truth. My father, who had always seen me as a failure, now had to face the fact that he was wrong. Every word he had said about me had felt like a slap in the face, but today, I would make him realize that I was not a useless girl. I had stood up, and I would never let them continue to dictate my life. Finally, after a week of thinking, I received an invitation to attend the family dinner that weekend. Strangely, my father invited me to an event where I knew he would publicly declare Jake as the successor of the family business. I couldn't believe he would do it so openly, as if there was nothing to hide. I knew this wouldn't be just any ordinary dinner. This was my father's public move, a way to show me that I meant nothing to him. More than that, it was an opportunity for my father to display his power and force me to accept the truth he had long created. But instead of declining the invitation as I had originally planned, I decided to attend. I don't know why I did it, maybe because I wanted to see him face the consequences of what he had done, or maybe because I wanted to show my parents and the whole family that I would not bow down to anyone anymore. It was time for me to prove to them that I was the one in control of my life, and I would never be the failure they thought I was. That day, I wore a simple yet elegant dress. My hair was neatly tied back, and my face was not overly made up, but radiated confidence. As I entered my parents' house, I could immediately feel the tension in the air. My mom rushed to open the door, greeting me with a smile, but there was a clear sense of anxiety in her eyes. "You're here, Sarah," my mom said, her voice trembling a bit. "The family is waiting for you in the living room." I nodded slightly, said nothing further, and then walked into the living room. My father sat at the head of the table as usual, his face cold and stern. Jake sat next to him, smiling as if everything had been arranged long ago. No one said anything. The atmosphere grew tense. Only the soft music played from the speakers, but no one in the room could feel its warmth. I didn't sit down immediately, but stood for a moment, observing everything. It was exactly as I had imagined. My mom placed a plate of food in front of me, but I didn't touch it. All eyes were on me, but I didn't feel any warmth. I felt like a stranger in my own home. Finally, my father spoke, his voice deep and firm. "I want everyone to hear this clearly. Today is an important day." He turned to look at Jake, patting his shoulder. "Jake, you have proven your ability and determination. From today, you will be the heir to this family business." The entire room went silent for a moment, and I could feel the self-satisfaction in my father's voice. He spoke as if it were obvious, as if there was no one else but Jake who could hold the company. That obviousness felt like a knife in my heart. But I didn't let it shake me. I looked straight at my father and smiled. "Are you all sure this is the right decision?" I asked, my voice calm but challenging. "Sure that Jake is the only one who can carry the company?" I looked into my father's eyes, but he didn't answer immediately. My mom glanced at him, as if sensing the tension in the air. Jake just sat there, his expression unchanged, as though he didn't understand what was happening. My father frowned, not pleased by my question. "Sarah, you don't need to question that. Jake is the son I have always trusted. As for you, you have never been capable of doing this. You think you can run this family business?" I didn't reply immediately. I had heard that question so many times before, and now I just wanted him to see that I wasn't someone he could easily dismiss. I slowly sat down, my gaze never leaving my father. "Then why have you let me suffer all these years, Dad? You think I'm incapable, but I've done everything you couldn't do. I saved this company from financial ruin. I did everything to keep it alive, but you only see Jake." The room went silent again, all eyes now focused on me. My father lowered his head as if he was thinking about what I just said. Jake didn't know what to do. He just sat there, his face expressionless. My mom glanced at my father, then gently said, "Sarah, don't make this awkward. Your dad just wants the best for the family." I didn't listen to my mom because I knew she was trying to keep the peace. But I couldn't stay silent any longer. "The best for this family, Mom, is not to continue living in this pretense. Dad doesn't see me because he always thought I was a failure, but I won't let him control my life anymore. I don't need his approval anymore. and I don't need to prove myself anymore. My father stared at me for a long while, and in the end, he didn't say anything more. The air in the room became still, heavy with tension. I knew he had heard me, and he understood that I was no longer the little girl he could control. Now I was the one in control of my own fate, and I wouldn't let my father or anyone else in this family make me bow my head again. I looked around, my gaze stopping on the people sitting in the living room, familiar faces now carrying a sense of strangeness. My father sat at the head of the table as though he dominated everything, his eyes filled with pride. Jake sat next to him, smiling as if he had everything in hand. My mom was still sitting there, quietly, her eyes glancing at me indifferently. The whole family was focused on my father, waiting for him to announce what I already knew. Jake will be the heir to the family business. Everything played out just as I had thought. My father's words were nothing new, but still enough to make the atmosphere tense. He spoke with all the confidence, as if this was something unquestionable, as if the company had always belonged to Jake. That certainty felt like a knife to my heart. But I didn't let it sway me. I stood up, without a word, opened my laptop, and connected it to the projector in the living room. A few surprised glances passed through me, but I didn't care. A feeling of satisfaction, yet full of determination, filled me. "Dad," I began, my voice calm but certain, "you can announce whatever you want, but the truth is, I am the one who saved this company. I'm the one who helped this family through a financial crisis that you didn't even know about." The room went silent. Plates of food and glasses of wine hung suspended in the air. I could feel the tension in the air. I clicked the keys to bring up the video I had prepared earlier. It was a video filled with documents, contracts, and financial data about the company over the years. Each figure, each image, slowly appeared, proving what I had done. "This is the financial report of the company over the past 6 years," I said, never taking my eyes off the screen. "In all these transactions, you all thought you were paying off bank loans, but in reality, I've been paying them all. I've helped this family through this hard time. All the loans, all the family expenses have been covered by me, and you didn't even know." Everyone went silent. My mom lowered her head, too afraid to look at me. My father, the one who always thought I wasn't capable, now sat still, his expression no longer smug. Jake's smile faded, his face becoming stiff, unsure of how to respond. I continued, "Dad said I wasn't capable of running this company, but I did everything to keep it going. This company wouldn't have survived without me. I used to think you would understand, but now I realize you've never understood me, never valued what I've done. The family image I once believed in had completely shattered. I had given so much, sacrificed so much, only to receive indifference and contempt. My father's words over the years, the comparisons between me and Jake, no longer mattered. I had done everything for this family, but they never saw me for who I really was." My mom, who always defended me, now sat in silence. She didn't dare speak up, perhaps because she felt the same helplessness I did. My father at this moment had no words to retort. He just sat there, eyes fixed on the screen where I had exposed everything he had done to me over the years. "You think I'm not worthy, that I can't lead this company, but I've done it. And now you will see what I do with it," I said, my voice steadier than ever. "Jake will not inherit this company. I am the one who decides its fate." I paused for a moment, allowing the room to settle. The entire room seemed to be waiting for my father's response, but he said nothing. My mom looked at me, her eyes tearful, but she said nothing. And Jake, my younger brother, looked at me as though I had done something unforgivable. I turned to look at my father one more time, my heart full of determination. "You called me a failure, but I won't let you decide my life anymore. I've done everything for this family, but never received recognition. Now, I will do what I think is right, and this company will never belong to anyone but me." At this point, my father no longer had the self-satisfied expression he once had. He didn't have any more belittling words for me. My mom looked at me with a sorrowful gaze, but I knew she understood. This wasn't the fight I wanted, but if I didn't stand up, I would forever be buried under the weight of his criticism and disdain. You've done enough, I said, my voice calm but full of strength. It's time for me to be recognized for who I truly am. The whole room fell silent after what I had just said. No one moved, no one spoke, only the light from the laptop screen reflected on the still faces. The atmosphere was thick with tension, as if everything was waiting for a reaction, for a defense from my family. But instead of apologies or understanding, I received a series of strong reactions from the people I had spent my whole life loving. My father, the one I had always sought recognition from, stood up from his chair, his voice trembling with anger. What? You're not the one who should be in charge of this company. How could you do this? He shouted, his face turning red with rage. You're not worthy. You never have been. You're just a useless girl. And Jake, my son, he's the one with the ability. I looked at him with no emotion, no flinch. I had grown used to that contempt. I had gotten so used to living under the shadow of a father who would never appreciate me for who I was. But today, no one could stop me. Dad, you are wrong. You should have understood me, but instead you've always seen me as a failure, I said, my voice calm but full of strength. My mother sat silently, her eyes full of worry. She suddenly spoke, her voice choking, as if she wanted me to feel her pain. Sarah, don't do this. I can't bear to see our family fall apart. Please, don't do this, she sobbed, struggling to hold back her tears. Your dad just wants the best for you, and for the family. You don't understand. I turned to look at my mom, and for a moment, my heart softened. My mom, who had always stood behind my father, was now the one pleading with me to turn back. But I couldn't turn back. Mom, you can apologize your whole life, but it's too late now. I can't keep living under Dad in your shadow. I can't live like a shadow in this family anymore. Jake, my younger brother, had been silent during the conversation, but then he suddenly stood up, his face hardening with anger. Do you really think you're doing the right thing, Sarah? You've ruined everything. You've messed everything up. You've destroyed our family, Jake said, his voice cold and challenging. You don't deserve this company. I don't know why Dad would hand it over to you, but now I understand. You have no ability. Jake's words hit me like another knife to my heart. I had spent so much time caring for the family, so much effort to keep the company standing, and now he was saying things like that. But I didn't respond. I just looked straight at him, unfazed. Jake, you may hate me, you may not understand me, but I don't need your approval or Dad's. I've done everything for this family, and I'll keep doing it for myself, not for any of you. Everything inside me felt like it had been cleared out. I no longer felt pain or disappointment. My entire family was here, strongly resisting, but I knew I was right. I knew I was doing the right thing, and no one here could make me change my mind. Just then, when the tension in the room had become unbearable, my phone suddenly vibrated. A call came in. I didn't think much of it because at that moment, nothing was more important than this confrontation. But when I looked at the screen, I saw an unfamiliar number. A vague, unexplainable feeling made me decide to answer. Hello, this is Attorney John Thompson. A deep and serious voice came from the other side of the line. I'm calling to inform you that I represent a party with interests in the loans and financial transactions of the Parker family business. I stood frozen, unable to believe what I was hearing. All the tension, all the accusations from my family were suddenly overshadowed by this phone call. I listened more closely, suspicious yet curious. Who are you? Who do you represent? I asked, my voice a bit tense. You don't need to worry about that. Just know that there are important documents and evidence your family needs to review. Information related to the buying and selling of company shares and loans over the years, Attorney Thompson said, his voice steady. We have confirmed that these transactions were not conducted transparently, and we will take legal action if necessary. The entire room went still, no one reacting immediately. My father looked at me, his eyes no longer as hard as before. Jake stayed silent, saying nothing. My mom, still not fully understanding what was going on, also sensed the shift in the air. So what do you want? I asked. My voice now regained its calmness, but inside I was full of confusion. This was something I never expected. No one in my family thought there would be an external legal intervention. We need a meeting with all the concerned parties this week. That's all I can say for now. Be prepared, Attorney Thompson said, before hanging up. I sat down, feeling everything changing rapidly. What I thought was an internal family struggle had now turned into a much more complex legal issue. My father no longer showed the arrogance he once had. Jake, no matter how angry he was, remained silent. My mom looked at me, her eyes full of worry, but I knew that no matter what, I wouldn't back down. I was still sitting there, thinking about the call from Attorney Thompson. Everything wasn't over, and a sense of unease started to invade me. I knew that things were getting more complicated than ever, and what I thought was within my grasp had suddenly become unclear. Just then, my phone rang again. The name on the screen made me stop breathing for a moment. It was Mark, my longtime financial advisor, the person I had secretly worked with to create a deal that would give me complete leverage in the company. Sarah, Mark's voice came through the phone, calm and steady as usual. I'm sure you've heard about your dad trying to transfer company shares to Jake without your consent, right? I nodded, even though Mark couldn't see me. Yes, I've heard, but this is the first time I'm realizing he could do this violation. What can I do about it? Of course you can do a lot, Mark responded, his tone almost mocking, as if he'd been waiting for this question. And that's why I'm calling you. You have the right to push your dad and Jake out of the company. This is a serious act of deceit and breach of contract. If you want, we can start a lengthy legal battle, and we'll definitely succeed. A wave of strong emotions washed over me. I knew I had rights in the company, but the fact that my father was trying to seize shares without my consent was too much. I never thought things would go this far. So what can I do right now? Do I need to take action? I asked, my voice tense. First, Sarah, you need to prepare all the documents, the evidence of your ownership. Everything has to be perfect, so when we go to court, no one can deny it. But most importantly, you need to prepare yourself mentally, Mark replied, his tone serious. You'll be facing a brutal battle, not just about the company, but about your family. Your dad won't let go easily. I sat in silence for a while, thinking about what Mark said. I couldn't deny that I had been preparing for this moment for a long time, but when things became so specific, I felt an odd sense of fear. I would have to face my father, my family, the people who had once meant everything to me. Would I have enough courage to fight until the end? I understand, Mark. I'll prepare everything. But I need to be sure we can win this fight. I don't want it to end just because of some small mistake, I said, my voice now firmer, more determined. Don't worry, Sarah. We won't lose. I've reviewed all the documents, contracts, and everything is in your favor. What matters now is that you're mentally prepared to fight, Mark reassured me. We'll plan carefully and as thoroughly as possible. Don't worry. After hanging up, I felt a sense of relief lift from my shoulders. I had a trustworthy partner, and I knew I wasn't facing this alone. However, the reality that I would have to confront my parents and Jake still made my heart tighten. How would they react when I pushed them out of the company they had always considered a family asset? The next day, I began collecting all the necessary documents to prepare for the legal battle. I opened up the share purchase agreements I had signed through my subsidiary, reviewing each clause once more. Every number, every letter in those documents felt like I was standing on a battlefield. I had to be extremely careful, no room for mistakes. Every move, every decision now could change my life forever. I decided to meet with Mark at the end of the day to discuss the next steps in more detail, but inside a thought kept swirling. When I win, will I be able to look my parents in the eye again, or will everything between us be forever changed? That question haunted me throughout the day. When I arrived at Mark's office in the afternoon, he had already prepared a thick stack of documents. I've been working through the night, Sarah, Mark said as I walked in. Here's the evidence and the steps we need to take. We need to act quickly. I looked at the documents, each sheet containing information that could change everything. I knew I couldn't turn back now. This was the moment I had to do what I never imagined I'd do. Fight. Not just for the company, but for the respect I deserved. The respect I had never received from my family. After everything was prepared, I knew it was time to face my father one last time. The legal battle would never be enough to completely free me from his shadow. What I needed to do now was not just reclaim ownership of the company, but also reclaim the respect I deserved, the respect I had never gotten from my family. And that's why I decided to face my father directly, the man I had always hoped would see me differently. That day, I went to meet him alone, without my mom or Jake. I didn't want anyone to interfere with this conversation. I had prepared myself mentally, no longer feeling anxious or fearful. This was the final confrontation, and I wouldn't back down. When I arrived at my parents' house, my father was already sitting in the living room, his usual cold expression on his face. He didn't stand to greet me, nor did he ask how I was, as he had before. We were far too familiar with this. "Sit down, Sarah," my father said, his voice still cold, with no warmth in it. I sat down across from him, not looking away, staring directly into his eyes. "Dad, I've made my decision," I said, my voice steady. "This isn't just about the company anymore, it's about my life. I won't let you control my life anymore." My father was silent for a moment, then looked at me with a sharp gaze. "What are you planning to do?" he asked, his voice laced with contempt. "You think you can run this company? You're not capable. Jake is the heir." I didn't rush to answer. I slowly opened my laptop, connected it to the projector as I had done before. This time, I wasn't just showing legal documents. I had also prepared a tech project I had been working on for a long time. This was a project I believed would propel the company into becoming a major tech giant in the future. "Dad, I don't just want to keep the company where it is. I've prepared a huge project, a plan that will take our company to the next level. This isn't just about software or technology. This is a long-term strategy to make our company a household name in the tech industry, a name the world will recognize." I started explaining the details of the project, not skipping any crucial information. With this plan, the company will not only stand strong in the software industry, but will also branch out into emerging tech fields like artificial intelligence and big data. My father sat still, his eyes no longer filled with arrogance. He stared at me, but said nothing. The room was so quiet I could hear his breathing. The project I was presenting could change everything, and I knew my father had realized that I wasn't a failure. I had proven that I had the ability. "You may not trust me, but I've prepared everything. That's why I will be the one leading this company. Not Jake, no one else," I said, my voice firm without hesitation. "I will usher in a new era for this company, and you will never be a part of it again." At this point, my father no longer reacted as he had before. He sat in silence, saying nothing. I could see him struggling with his own thoughts. A part of him probably couldn't accept this truth, but another part understood that I had gone too far to be stopped. "Dad, I don't need your approval anymore," I continued. "I've done enough. You don't need to worry about my future anymore, and you don't need to worry about the company. I will do what needs to be done, and I will steer this company in the right direction." He stared at me for a long while, then finally he sighed, his voice softer. "You think you can do this on your own. You won't be able to do this without me and my experience." I didn't let him pull me back into old thoughts. "Dad, you don't need to worry about me anymore. I've prepared for everything, and I won't need your help. I will do this on my own, and this company will become one of the biggest names in the tech industry." My father didn't say anything more, just looked at me, his gaze no longer as firm as before. Perhaps he realized that I wouldn't turn back. After everything I had done, after all the sacrifices, I deserved respect. Not just from him, but from myself. And I wouldn't let anyone, not even him, make me compromise again. Finally, when all the legal procedures were completed and I officially took control of the company, a strange feeling filled me. I no longer had to worry about my father or my family controlling my life. I had everything I needed to start a new life. But at that moment, I realized that no matter how successful I became, I could never live in the shadow of my family forever. The years of living in comparison and emotional deprivation were enough. If it was time to live my own life, no one could stop me. Deciding to leave everything behind, I began selling the assets my family had helped me build. The house in New York City where I had lived for so many years was now just a relic. It was no longer a place where I found peace. Those days had now become nothing but painful memories. I sold everything, including the houses, the cars, and all the things tied to my old life. With no regrets, I decided to walk away. I moved to a new city, a place where there was no family, no contempt, no criticism. The new city gave me an entirely different space where I could rebuild my life from scratch. I didn't have to live under the pressure of people I had sacrificed so much for. I would start over, but this time I would do it for myself, not for anyone else. Every morning when I woke up, I could feel the change in my soul. No more pressure from my family or from those who had always made me feel like a failure. I started building a new tech company, not just for success, but to help women like me, young women who had suffered financial and emotional abuse within their families. I wanted to create a safe space where they could find support and the opportunity to change their lives. I remembered the times I had to fight to be recognized in my family. Every step I took, I faced contempt, bitter words from my parents, and unfair comparisons with Jake. But now, I could clearly see that I didn't need to wait for anyone's approval. I could create my own path. One day, while sitting in my office looking out at the bustling city outside, I received a call from a woman named Maria. She called to thank me for creating a work environment where she could feel safe and grow. Maria, like me, had once lived in a financially unstable family where she was never valued and always had to struggle with her family's financial decisions. She said I had changed her life, helping her not only overcome difficulties, but also find the strength to build her own career. Hearing those words, I felt a warm wave rise in my heart. From that moment on, I knew I was on the right path. I hadn't just changed my own life, I had also created change for others. That was the reason I had been searching for all my life. A reason to feel proud of what I had done. A reason to know that I wasn't just a part of my old family, but a part of a new community where I could help people like me. Each day that passed, I felt more and more free. No more constraints, no more criticism, no more comparisons. I could live the way I wanted in the way that felt right to me. Every project I worked on, every woman I helped made me feel happy and fulfilled. My company was not just a place to make money, it was a place to make real changes in the community. I hadn't just built a tech company, I had created a place where every woman could find the strength and confidence to pursue her dreams. And then one day, when I stood in front of the office window looking out at the city, I realized that I was no longer the girl my father once considered a failure. I had overcome all the harsh words, overcome all the deprivation, and now I stood firm on my own 2 feet. I didn't need my parents' approval. I didn't need to prove myself to anyone. I had done it for myself because I believed I deserved it. My life now was an endless journey, and no matter how many challenges lay ahead, I would always move forward, never looking back, because I knew that, in the end, I had found freedom. The freedom to live the life I had always wanted. My story may just be one of countless stories that each of us has experienced in life. Inner struggles, the exhausting moments of having to prove our worth, and the difficult decisions to find our own freedom. I believe everyone has their own challenges, their own pain, and resilience that only they understand. But through this story, I hope you can see that no matter how harsh life gets, we all have the right to choose and control our own destiny. So, what about you? Have you ever felt left behind, unrecognized, or have you ever had to face challenges to find your own path? I would love to hear your stories and thoughts. Don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments because every story deserves to be heard and respected. If you found my story inspiring, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any upcoming stories about family life, struggles, and life lessons that I'll share in future videos. Thank you for joining me at the end of this story. Keep following and let's discover more inspiring stories where we will continue to learn and grow together.